Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this day you give us. Thank you for all the blessings we have through you. Thank you for all of our citizens in Henry County, and thank you for this board. Be with us as we make decisions tonight in the best interest of Henry County. Again, we lift up our military men and women that's fighting for freedom, that we might stand here tonight. Pray you and salute the flag. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a regular meeting of the Henry County Board of County Commissioners being held on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018 at 5 p.m. in the Commission Chambers in LaBelle, Florida. In attendance are Chairman Mitchell Wills, Vice Chair Emma Byrd, Commissioner Darrell Harris, Commissioner Michael Swindle, Commissioner Carson Turner, Interim County Administrator Jennifer Davis, County Attorney Mark Lapp, and Clerk Barbara Butler.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we get started, if everyone, we gotta make sure your microphones are facing you. We got a little bit of technical difficulty, so I want to make sure everyone can hear tonight. So kind of pull that down between you in case you need to speak. Mark, if you would, kind of pull that back to you. Thank you very much. Okay, the first thing on the agenda tonight is bids, an RFQ 2018-21.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend to approve the recommendation of Johnson Engineering.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Is there any further discussion on the board?
Well, I don't know about much discussion, but it just says funding for the planning and design and permanent construction services we provided through FEMA. Is that exciting to one other than me?
It is. So,
Is there a timeline? Are they gonna pay?
Okay, so I can speak to this. This is for the North
Mr.
LaBelle.
Chair, why is he so angry?
He's a little frustrated tonight. So,
A little frustrated here.
yeah.
we don't have a creek leak.
So if I may, this is not reimbursement for debris. This is for a FEMA mitigation project for North LaBelle. As you all know, we had a lot of flooding with Hurricane Irma in North LaBelle, and a lot of the private creeks have trees that are encroaching on all those waterways. So this is for clean and snag. And in addition to that, they have made this a mitigation project where they will actually improve the drainage system. So if we do have future hurricanes, it is to prevent flooding in that area.
But they're gonna pay.
And they are going to pay, yes, sir.
Can we make them pay up front?
Well, we talked about that, because this is a large project, and so, we talked about potentially getting advances, and we've already had several conversations with them about our cash flow, and, that we would like to seek advance, payment for these if possible, so they are making that request.
Good, that's awesome,
And
thanks.
I think there's the funding more than what we realize is going to be. Is it going to be 3.1 or 6?
So initially it was a 3.1, 3.2 million, and then they turned it into a mitigation project to actually improve the waterways, not just clean them out, for a little over $6 million. And
Okay.
so this, what you're approving tonight is actually for the engineers to design the system to come up with the actual, and we'll have to bid it out to come up with the actual, that's their estimate of what they think it'll cost.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to, maybe amend the agenda to make our interim county administrator the county administrator. What do you think?
Let's try it.
So we'll do that now rather than at the end?
I want to do it right
Oh,
now.
just do it now, yeah.
We'll see how long this discussion is gonna take. I'm worried about you crazy people.
Hey, you know, you guys throw me under the bus right out the gate, so I think we should do the same thing. I'm for it.
I think some of them changed their mind.
Yeah, I think you should wait till the end so she can't run out.
The thing is Charles isn't here, so what are we gonna do?
I make a motion that we appoint Jennifer Davis as county administrator effective right now.
Can you clarify that's also to approve the draft contract that was provided to you?
Yes. We've added Mark Lapp's language to the draft contract.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Davis.
Congratulations.
say anything before we move on?
I'd just like to thank you all, and I'm very excited. I'll do my very best. Born and raised here, and I'm very excited and honored to be able to have this position. Thank you.
Thank you,
Awesome.
ma'am. Okay, with the consent agenda, can you get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Turner. Is there any further discussion on that?
I hate to be this way, but F1.
Have fun. That's a truck.
Are we sure they're going to pay? I'm losing faith with FEMA doing anything other than making red tape government impossible.
So this is for emergency management, and it's a little different than our FEMA reimbursement. And so this is something that we do, and this is ongoing, and so this is just an update.
Okay, all right, so I shouldn't panic.
Right.
I just got a bad attitude about FEMA in case you hadn't picked up on that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah. I'm gonna roll with that.
Can you get a cup of coffee for Commissioner Swindle? Decaf. Okay, that's gonna take us to awards and appearances. We have a resolution before us tonight. I'm not even gonna attempt that.
That is actually
I'll
correct.
practice
TB, you practiced that? Very good.
But I think I didn't practice it correctly. Sure.
Epidermolysis?
Epidermolysis bullosa.
There we go.
I've had 18 years of practice, so.
Okay.
It is National EB Awareness Week, starting October 25th through October 31st. EB is a genetic skin disorder where patients lack the protein that allows your skin to anchor properly. As much as everybody thinks this is like psoriasis or something that simple, your skin is your largest organ. So if you can imagine hugging your child and causing pain, or, of course I have two comedians in the background, they have a positive outlook on everything, which is great because
Absolutely.
as a parent, sometimes you don't have that outlook. But it's something genetically, my husband and I are both recessive carriers, didn't know it. But it does happen in mutations, and there's not enough awareness, so every once in a while we try to remind everybody that it affects somebody locally, actually two. So if, that's why I wanted to bring it before the board.
Awesome.
Make a motion to approve. As presented.
Oh, yeah, come here now.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris.
There you go. To each.
Yeah, just want to let, get the technical part out of the way, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're making it easier.
Thank you.
Yes, you can.
Thank you, dear.
Since she's my comedian, she also gets to be my Vanna.
Oh, I was smart enough to-
Let's get it started, we'll take a picture.
I do, because
No.
I'd rather go.
Alright, ready? 1. Harris. 1, 2, 3. A couple. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all very much. We had a motion and a second on the floor. Can we have any further discussion? We seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. That's gonna open up the first several public hearings. There will be hearings of the public. If you wish to speak at these, please refrain until you reach the microphone, identify yourself, and then you'll be allowed to speak. We appreciate that courtesy. Thank you. Ms. Emlich, how are you?
Just fine, sir. Thank you. This first public hearing agenda item is a variance for a pool setback. The request is to allow a 4-foot setback from the property line. The property is adjacent to the core easement along the Coosatchee River. This is the type of variance that we've approved in the past. It was supported by the LPA, and
I move to accept.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Harris. Was that you, Commissioner Summerall, second?
No.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes, sir.
Second by Commissioner Turner. This is a meeting of the public. Does anyone in the public would like to address this? Seeing none. Any more on board?
Just to be clear, there's a revised resolution that was emailed to you, and that's the one that you're being asked to approve.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Emily.
Full party of Marys.
yeah.
Just in time for football season.
Next one is petition number CPA 18-0007.
Yes.
Correct, or do you have another one there?
Yes, Commissioners, we have one staff report for both of the Florida Power and Light comp plan amendments.
Okay.
CPA 18-007 is a text amendment to allow for a solar facility on the property that's located on County Road 833. CPA 18-008 is the actual map amendment for the comprehensive future land use map. Staff has provided the backup information. The LPA recommended the board transmit these applications to the state reviewing agencies. So it would be appropriate for you to make a motion on both of the petitions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ferris, second
Separately.
by Commissioner Harris.
Yeah.
This also being a meeting of the public, is there anyone in the public who would like to address this?
Okay.
So you want them in two different motions?
Yes.
So I make a motion to approve item CPA 18-0007.
Second.
Motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Do we need to do that for the second one as well?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if someone would.
I will make a motion to also approve CPA 18-0008.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Once again, this is also a public hearing. Does anyone in the public would like to address this?
What's on the land now?
Old Orange Grove.
Orange Grove? So, will we get at least the same tax we get off the Orange Grove?
Commissioner, we won't know how much the value will be until they actually complete their construction. But it'll be valued based on, there would be, based on the Florida statutes, they would not pay 80% of their value. And that's highlighted in the staff report, in case you hadn't
But
had a
they did
chance.
pay something.
They will pay something, yes.
It's
but we-
roughly ag taxes.
We
Generic
won't
ag
know,
taxes.
whether it's more or less than what they're paying now.
So,
It's been determined by the real property,
yeah,
correct?
Well, there's also tangible tax.
Right.
I thought they were exempt from that on everything now.
They're
I thought
exempt
that
for
was-
80%.
Yeah, okay, all right, so I would like to address this real quick, and I would love for my board to help me and engage in this, and see if I'm the lone wolf on this like I am FEMA. Who's here? I see Rock Engineering Firm here. Is anyone from FPNL here?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. And I would like to make a statement and get our board to chime in here if they feel necessary. I still have a bruised kidney from the beating we took for FPNL on a large tract of land in the southern part of the county. I am super excited that FPNL is in this county. I have no problem with this project. I want to see this project happen. I want to see more projects happen. But I want to see some tangible returns on the investments that I still have a bruised kidney from, that we on this diocese took for months to make this possible, rather than taking property that we are not going to see full benefit from and developing it and transforming it before the other property is developed.
Can't speak for all of my commissioners, but I think you probably have a 5-0 vote of support on that, Commissioner Swindle. And I think it's a great time to ask for an update as it relates to the South County project on that piece down there, because we were right there with the Coles. And I think you've seen nothing but, regardless of who's up here, a unanimous vote of support on wanting to conduct business with Florida Power and Light and welcoming with open arms you all into this county. So I think just an update would be wonderful for us to receive.
And I,
And the only thing I hate to see us put all that in solar, not receive nothing from it.
well, we're gonna receive something. I mean, there are some tax benefit there, but the property south, we're gonna receive the full tangible benefits of the property and the benefits on the solar before the exemptions kick in. And now I'm afraid they're gonna go buy an enormous amount of property and hold that for years and not develop it.
I thought that was part of the discussion we had, that they had to complete the build out before they started the next phase of the project.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We're not sure of that.
Yeah,
Then,
sure.
then the
Why
other
would
part
you
of
have
that
just
is,
put there?
the one you're talking about,
Yes,
is they
additional
don't
information.
agree with the property appraiser on the tax.
On south of LaBelle, on South LaBelle?
Right.
Well, I'd certainly love to get that worked out. I mean, total support, but I'd certainly love to see, us come to consensus before I begin approving much more and continue my support.
Yeah, we can't give it away.
Commissioners, thank you for the approval you gave us, and as an update, your staff knows that we have one application in the south property right now for site development approval, and the second one is on the way. So both the north and the south projects are currently being designed, and they should be in permitting. Actually, they're already in environmental permitting. FBL has most of the permits in place. We're working with staff to get the county's approval. So you should see some construction within the next year or two on those two parcels, which are not exempt.
Correct.
Brock, could you all prepare a report for us, just given a chronological timeline and some backdrop?
Glad to do it.
And I would love to even see what the projection is, because I know along that main transition line, they are trying to buy off every tangible piece of property that they can connect to for that. Well, and you know what, if that's good for their business and good for the landowners that want to sell it, I'll support it all day long, for so long as the business model for the county is a return on the investment that we all went through to make this happen.
I understand. What I can report back to you on is the development part of it. The real value and the tax value, I guess that's all to be determined by your property appraisers, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I think that's a way of putting it. I also think that another way of putting it is there were routine estimates that were thrown out for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or 3 towers versus 6 versus 9, and I just think I think that it would be very beneficial to this commission to see that and to know. Commissioner Byrd or Commissioner Wills, I'm sure y'all witnessed a lot of it, and you educated yourself on it. But I think that if you showed milestones of what were some of the prohibiting factors, and the fact that dirt was ready to be turned, and then we had a tremendous litigious battle that went on for a very long time that stopped a lot of things.
Hence
You
the
know,
Bruce kidney.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And every time we turned around, be it if it were,
Yeah.
it didn't matter. The chambers were filled. And we were making a horrible decision for the state of Florida. We were killing everything, and we all disagree with that vehemently. And so I just think an update would be wonderful, so that we could educate ourselves and be brought up to speed on where we're at on it.
And to be clear, I still disagree with it, and I still support it for now, and I still want their business here. But perhaps it's just, the update is what we need. Maybe we are where we need to be, but we're just not seeing it, and I would love to be briefed.
I'll work with FPL and get you some.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Again, this is a hearing of the public. Does anyone in the public would like to address this? Further discussion on the board? Do we have a motion?
Yes, think I did for
Yeah,
both.
you got a motion.
We
in.
got a motion.
We just haven't voted.
Yes, sir.
Motion, that's right, we did both of them, so,
Yeah, both of
seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Got a little lost there on the Bruce, didn't he?
Yeah, see,
Yeah, me too. Okay, that's gonna bring us to correspondence under actions. Yes, we did.
Item D under public hearing still. D under public hearing.
Oh, there's a D, okay. We have an amendment to the economic development ad valorem tax, and who's presenting that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I am. This is really just a cleanup amendment. You know, we have the ad valorem tax exemption ordinance on the books. The authority for it expired after 10 years from the prior vote in January of 18. So we had to have a new vote. It was approved in August by the voters. So this just adds the new approval date to the ordinance.
I move to accept option one.
A motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. This also being a meeting of the public, does anyone in the public would like to address this? Seeing none, any further discussion on the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's gonna bring us to the correspondence and action. Who's presenting this? Tax for certificate applications.
I will,
You got that one?
I got it.
You got it, Mr. Butler, go ahead.
Okay. With, I wrote the board a letter considering how many tax deed applications we have. This is only the ones that the county has applied for. This is not the individuals that apply every year. I'm killing my girl. We can't go any faster than we're going. We've got a tax deed sale
Hire that other person.
immediately.
And you got it all queued up and ready to go.
No,
Okay.
We don't have
I don't have this
finances.
person. I have to know if y'all are gonna fund it first.
Right.
I make a motion that we fund an
Ooh.
additional employee.
Jennifer, do we have the funds?
Second for discussion.
Yeah.
Is the funds available?
So we would do a budget amendment with your approval. We would take it from contingencies, in the general fund where her budget is approved.
And I think the reason for this is, with that additional employee just doing nothing but that, the county's gonna benefit from it, cause we're gonna get more on the tax roll going back on. It's sort of like a grant writer, that person's gonna pay for themselves, I think.
If I may, what you could do is as you sell these properties, then you could replenish it back. And I think that, the idea is that it would pay for itself and then some. And so you could do a budget amendment from contingencies if you so chose. And then as a parcel sell, we could, put it back into contingencies and then keep track of it from a ROI perspective.
Ms. Butler, do you like that Roy discussion?
Pardon me?
Are you okay with that return on investment discussion?
Oh, I don't care, cause I give it back, I give everything back to county anyway.
I like it.
Okay.
You know, let me explain something to you. On the tax deed process, you know, the only property that we give money back to the county on is if it's on the list of lands, and then Mark sells it. We don't sell that, it's on the list of lands. What we're doing is we're putting the property back on the tax roll where you can collect taxes.
That's what we want.
You know, so we don't have sales that come back to the county. We have sales that goes to all these people that come to the tax deed process. They pay for the property, then you get the return and putting what goes back on the tax roll and collecting the taxes on the property.
And this-
There's no way that I can tell you how much that's gonna be, you know,
This is gonna speed it up.
tremendously with two people.
Well, I certainly understand, and I make no bones about it. I have been in both offices on both sides of the county, and it's like a beehive in there. Everybody's doing something, they're getting after it, and I totally understand. And being overwhelmed is a underwater feeling that no one likes, but the opposite of that is underwhelmed. And, you know, we don't like that. And, you know, if we have to support this, and this is something that has to be done to better the process and make it up, the money's there, you know, if we're comfortable, we can do that, but I would just implore you to please make sure if there's not somebody, you can put part-time there and move some stuff around to try to avoid spending the extra money. I know, that's why I qualified it by saying I've been in your office and I see it, and I get it, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can't do it so much, you know, and I help Jeanette every bit, but I'm burning her out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be looking, you know, if I keep pushing the way I'm pushing her, if she quit tomorrow, I couldn't blame her.
Right, right.
It's too much, it's too much.
The process is so long, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what, the process is long. I didn't realize that after we spoke, but the process is so long. And that's why
You
it
gotta
takes
have
that
the
kind of
process.
time, yeah.
When you said
It's
no
not,
more.
that's only part of it, I stopped you, yes.
And not that I don't think that you guys don't need it, but look, we're all committed to being as frugal as possible, and before we make that investment, let's just make sure that we have explored every option, been down every path, and that this is the only legitimate way that we can make this happen for our constituents.
Nobody else can do it but the clerk.
Yeah,
So, you know,
okay.
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion by Commissioner Harris.
It was seconded, I believe, by Commissioner Turner.
He seconded, second discussion, you want to second it, you good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just to be clear, it includes the budget amendment that Ms. Davis referred to.
Would you include that?
Yes, it's included with budget.
This is also a public hearing, so is anyone like to address that from the public?
This not.
I thought it is under D, is it? No, it's not,
no,
okay,
no.
that's a different one. All right, well, I see it, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, first. Got one happy and one bad down there tonight, we got a good balance.
FEMA, I'm aggravated at FEMA, that's all.
Okay, you guys saw the FYI, is there any discussion there, everybody good? It's gonna bring us to staff reports. Ms. Davis has already been placed in as county administrator.
Next.
Do you have anything for us for tonight, or? Okay, that's gonna bring us to you, Mr. Lapp.
Yes, first item is the loan documents with Center State Bank for the capital projects. It's a $6 million loan, 3.65% interest rate, 10-year duration with a 1 year to draw and then 9 years after that to make the payments. Pledging the half-cent sales tax revenue as the revenue source for it. Have to pay the bank's attorney's fee in the amount of $4,500.
What's he gonna do?
I'm sorry?
Is he gonna build a building for this for $4,500?
And his role, he issues the tax opinion that's it's tax exempt for federal tax purposes, which is critical to the bank to be able to do the rate because it's a lot below.
So
it's a
he
tax-
issued an opinion for $4,500.
Yeah, he also, you know, he had input on the documents. I mean, I did do a draft and he revised. I'm not gonna, it is what it is. It's,
Engineers and attorneys, good lord.
And then also, I provided to you the disclosure from the attorney that, or not from the attorney, from the bank with the interest that over the life of the loan that would be paid. That was what I handed out to you here a few minutes ago. So you're being asked to approve the resolution, which has attached to it the proposed loan agreement and the proposed promissory note. And you're approving the resolution. The chairman actually executes the loan agreement and the promissory note. And those would be done tomorrow. That's closing day.
I like it because on the last page of the mortgage, it says borrower, Mitch Wills, chairman. You can't pay it?
I've got it.
That's right.
Appreciate it.
We need to discuss the chairman now. Ms. Byrd. I believe it says and/or.
But I didn't sign it.
Okay, is there any further discussion? We need a motion on this?
We just need to make sure everybody understands it's a line of credit. We're not borrowing $6 million.
So we're ready, you're gonna pull the trigger and you're ready to pull money out of this thing by short.
Fairly soon.
It says you have to pull some money out of there. Okay, said projects, I mean, and the recap was courthouse complex, parking lots, jail. I mean, they're queued up, they're ready, we've got bids, we've got contractors.
So we've got a list of the repairs, and so, Mark and I were talking about this as far as the draw. So there's some things we'll be doing internally with existing staff, and we'll be buying the material, and we think we can handle some of the things
Okay.
internally. But then the other things, we either will have to go out to bid, or, talk to some kind of construction manager, and they're all very different. So jail is different than necessarily courthouse.
know, we've been speaking to the frugalness and the need for frugalness and borrowing money, you know what I mean? It's just kind of counterproductive to that conversation, but I'm so excited that how long, well, 5 years that I've been on the board, we've been talking about the jail leak and a lot of these problems. At least it's exciting to be able to fix and correct and problems. So I'm excited to be able to do that.
That you first didn't pass, fix it.
And not patch it. My concern is that we have someone to oversee it, because in the past, some construction, there was nobody to oversee the contractor to make sure that it was done properly.
Shoot out on both, put out on both, give them a whip.
We just need to make sure we have someone to oversee it.
I think have construction, somebody to oversee the construction part.
You can hire construction managers, to do that, and the contracted folks, or you could have someone internally to do it. So there's several different ways you can do it, but for example, with, Chris Tell, with some of the projects that they've done, they're a construction manager. And then they go out and they give the bids and they give you a guaranteed maximum price. That's one way to do it, but there are several ways to do it, and so we'll be bringing that back to you.
If our guys can do it, let's do it. Don't spend unless you have to.
I don't see how, I'd really like to lean on Commissioner Wills for this, with just having his background of knowing what staff does on a day-to-day basis more intimately than any of us, and I don't mean that in an offensive way. I would like to lean on you, Commissioner Wills, with your background of I personally don't think that anybody on staff has enough bandwidth to handle the task that we're talking about undertaking. But, and you don't have to have a discussion tonight, but I mean, I think if this is something that, I know I hate the word workshop, but I think this is one of those big items that we probably ought to lock ourselves in the room for 4 hours and we can schedule it for 4 hours, but start at 8 a.m. or start at 1 p.m. and let's try to get on the same page of what we want to see tackled, what do we want to have, see them at risk or hard bid or, RFQ or RFP, and, where are we at with it, and what do we want to see. I think we have a good idea of what we want as number 1, 2, and 3. But I want to confirm that that's what Commissioner Byrd, Commissioner Swindle, so on and so forth, I want to confirm that's what y'all want to do. I think without a doubt that the jail is number 1. But I want to make sure that, and I'm going to say this jokingly, that Commissioner Harris isn't trying to slide the parking lot in there with the jail project because, Kim Perkins is mad because there's potholes in the thing. Kim, man, she'll light you up. So, I just want to confirm that and know that now it's just as transparent as can be. I think that the reception that I've seen from the public on what we've been putting out, what Ms. Hunter has been doing to let people know what we're working on, with some of the different things that I've seen Shane's office, letting people know this is getting ready to happen in this section of the county and stuff. I think this is a new step that we can take that just makes it a little bit easier, better.
I don't think we can throw Alan out there and expect him to oversee the jail project. They can't.
Absolutely not.
We already know that.
And get ready to pay a premium.
Right.
Because now that the revenues have returned and we have the capacity to even do this, we all know what's happening in the private sector.
Yeah.
Go try to queue up a concrete crew today, or rod busters, yeah, or roofing.
Which is what we need.
Once again, that was the original conversation, that's why I brought up the construction matter, I was the one that mentioned that. But in the past, I do know that we partnered with Lee County in the past, and usually they had actual construction manager on staff.
Yeah, I couldn't stand him. Dan was his
Yeah, but he
name.
saved us a ton of money.
I know. Yeah.
He was aggravated.
I wasn't
He saved
even
us a lot of
elected,
money.
and I remember
We were on
talking
the
bad
same
about it,
page.
I was
and
working with him every day, so
Yeah.
trust me, I get it. But, once again, we had another gentleman that come in and did ACs for us, Paul Martin, same thing. He caught things that normally wouldn't get caught.
Yeah.
So there's other options, rather than hiring someone full staff, we need to look and see.
yes, sir.
Can we partner with a neighboring county or someone that has that? Because then you're looking at maybe half to a quarter of the cost.
Yes, sir.
But we do need to have that discussion, I agree with that, we should sit down and have that discussion, rather than putting it on anyone on staff, I don't agree with that. I do believe we need to have that discussion as far as, let's find someone to come in that's gonna be able to handle this and get us the best they can product for what we're asking for.
And Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Swindle's point of wanting to be as frugal as we can possibly be, I mean, Commissioner Swindle, if there is an issue where it's, it's a it's a 30-day fix. They can roll it right into their natural schedule of what they're going to be working on regardless. And Alan could take something like that on, you know, because it's a portion thereof of a piece of that contract. Yeah, that's something to happen, but I think that that's with the expertise and the knowledge that Alan has of our facilities in the county, pretty much any other staffer, they're gonna be able to rule that out when they look at that master list of what those projects are and what we wanna get done and what's our most front burning item, you know. Ms. Butler, I mean, right on that same conversation, there were multiple times when we would have a severe thunderstorm and you would call me frustrated. That doesn't happen anymore. Our building does not flood and fill up with water in certain areas anymore, or does it?
Not as bad as what I was told. By other departments.
On the judicial side, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
My window still in finance, still lit by six.
Okay.
That's part of what we're working on.
Yeah.
And that's-
That was in phase two, phase,
Yeah.
am I trying to say phase two? You know, you're supposed to be fixing that, so.
And those are, you know, those are things that right, wrong, or different, call it fiscal conservative, call it bullheaded, call it, you know, being poor stewards of the taxpayers' facilities. But, I mean, we just didn't have two nickels to rub together. We were using 100% of 1 cent ad valorem, 1 cent sales tax to balance our budget, you know, along with taking from the hurricane disaster relief fund. We're not there anymore. And so, I'm excited about looking at these things. I think y'all found a very creative way to use other people's money to potentially get some of these boxes checked. And I just want to make sure that as we have that conversation, and as we look back to what we said as our capital improvement project list that we wanted to do in 16, 17, and 17, 18, and so on and so forth, and then long after, you know, we're moving 3 and 4 cycles down, what's going to be the next ones that we chip off? You know, because I don't have a clue what that is, Commissioner Swindle.
No.
But I guarantee Alan does. You know, I guarantee you, and it's just like you brought up, or maybe it was both of y'all, but the Fort Deneau Cemetery, and how are we going to phase that next block into there? And you know, and you said it's filling up, and that's why I implore all of us to let's take a good 4 hours out of our day, let's get in the same room together, and let's chat about it. And you know, I had a great meeting with Dina Pittman today, and Ms. Pittman brought me, and it was so ironic that you just asked the question. It's crazy how worlds collide, and you just asked the question about the ad valorem you started the conversation on the ad valorem revenues associated with the FCNL project coming online. And Ms. Pittman brought to my attention that if we have projects that we're hearing about, and I don't know if any of y'all have heard about the Southeastern Ag Renewables potentially coming back online. Has anybody heard about that? No? Well, it's a project that, y'all remember bionitrogen? I don't mean to bring up any bad news right now. Remember when I had to do the cheerleading session about it's the biggest single announcement since U.S. Sugar? Were you there, Mike?
Yes.
It was the most angry I've probably been as an elected official to get behind that dais and say, congratulations, thank you for coming here. These are stalwarts of our community. Tomorrow we're going to be buying houses. Yeah, let me know how that's working out for you, Commissioner Turner. Good job, liar. And so we look at that, and then you look at Southeastern Ag Renewables. Southeastern Ag Renewables, they spent millions of dollars, and then they just vaporized in the thin air, and now they're back into the fold. And I don't know how that's all going to play out, but that's something that Ms. Pittman needs to know about that right now. And she was completely unaware because the lines of communication aren't open, you know. So I think this is exciting times.
You can approve option 1, that's the recommendation.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, Mr. Levy.
Yes.
The lease was originally for 9 months. Is that what it was?
No, 6.
It was for 6. Do we have is it Christelle that is working on the health department?
Yes.
Do we have an update from a timeline?
They've started, and they have a contract of no more than,
120 days, and they started around the 1st of October.
right. And so they think they're gonna be done before that, and so they felt I talked to Mr. Good, and he felt that 3 months extension on the existing lease would be more than enough time.
They're still paying for it?
And the insurance company has agreed to pay for the additional months.
Did y'all propose 6 or no? 9 months or
three
less?
additional months for a total of 9.
Oh, okay, I got it now, okay. I'll make a motion to approve, and thank you all for making sure that PRM is queuing up that payment.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Jennifer, FYI, do we need, any action on B? We got change order?
I don't think so.
So just an FYI, so I didn't see anything, no action needed.
Okay.
I'll look real quick, but I don't.
Hot topic, that's flat.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I don't think we need to take action on that thing, but, I mean,
We talking about that change order?
the DOT's paying for it, OAK has approved it.
Yeah, the way that, based on a prior board vote, you gave the administrator authority to
To
do
go
change
do it.
orders less than $10,000, but you required that it be an FYI item so that you knew that was happening, so it's already happened.
Yep.
It's informational.
Good, thank you.
And I just think that's, I mean, I think y'all, we didn't hold any construction up,
No,
you know, so.
those are about to-
Mr. Lott, code enforcement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Right up.
This is the overview of code enforcement that the board asked for.
Can I rip it out?
So, want me to walk through the memo, or you just want me to field questions, or how do we want to proceed?
Good, good.
Okay. Our code enforcement cases fall into 3 principal types. We have lot mowing and junk and debris, which is 1 category. Unsafe buildings, which is the 2nd category, and everything else in the nature of code enforcement in a 3rd category. They each follow a separate process, a different process. So the first one, lot mowing and junk and debris, that's the most streamlined of the 3. It doesn't involve court at the front end. It might only involve court at the back end for foreclosure, but for purposes of the code enforcement phase, there's no court. It's an inspection and a letter, and if there's no response, there's also a posting at the courthouse and a posting of the property. But if there's no response or action within 15 days, the county can then hire a contractor to go out and mow it. And then we do that and then bill the landowner for the cost. And then after that, the expense is to be put on a board agenda for the board to ratify the lien that's then recorded on the property. This is only done on the ungated, unoccupied properties. So in other words, a dwelling that has somebody in it, we're not gonna do this process. Or a completely fenced property, we're not gonna do this process. But if it's vacant, or it may have a structure, but an unoccupied structure that's unfenced, then this process is followed. Then the second category is unsafe buildings. That's, buildings that have been declared unsafe by the building official. For that, it's a more involved process. There's 2 letters to the landowner, each of which provide a 60-day response period. The second letter is actually sent to everybody with an interest in the property, including people who, mortgage holders or lien holders, or a title search is done, and everybody who has any interest in the property is notified for the second letter. And then, if that's not addressed within the 60 days of the second letter, staff, then hire a contractor and go out and demolish the building and,
What if somebody's in the building?
well, these are dilapidated buildings. I mean, they are supposed to check to make sure there's not like a vagrant or something
Well,
in there,
we got
but
people living in them now.
I don't know, does that happen with these kinds of buildings?
No.
So you can't do it while the people are living in them.
Well, of course, we're not gonna demolish it when they're there, but I don't think that any of the ones that end up on the list
Because we've
have
got,
any.
we've got some,
Okay, Ms. Butch can address that maybe, or Ms. I don't know.
that's like that,
Well, hold on.
we've got some.
I was gonna let you, I wasn't gonna be the first one to speak to this issue tonight. So to that particular point that Commissioner Harris brings up, why do we have to wait until a building, why do we have to be so reactive? Why do we have to wait until a building is in complete disrepair before we engage the conversation of code enforcement to make said owner come into compliance? Do you follow what I'm saying?
I think,
It's falling down around their ears.
I think part of that is once the building official is notified, then they go look at the buildings. I've had several in my district that they weren't aware of, and then once they were made aware of the issues, the inspector actually went out to the buildings to look at those buildings. So it's not a matter of, they're not getting looked at, it's a matter of some of them aren't determined until someone actually calls and says, hey, I'm renting a house and the floor is falling out of it, or the wall's falling out. And so until we get, actually, I think some of these with the dwelling wise would be someone's living there. Now, you're talking about the ones, I looked at one this weekend that's just a structure there, walls, no windows and doors.
Abandoned.
So that's a different situation. So if there's a vagrant living in there, obviously we're gonna, there's no one in the building before the demolition takes process, but, those buildings there, that's not a dwelling at that point. It's a demolition site, so.
But we still have some where people living, and it's about ready to fall over.
We need to get those out of there. It's unsafe.
And
People don't need to be living in there anyway.
And that might be so, but if you put them out where they gonna.
They don't have no place to
That's what I'm
live.
saying, what do we have to offer them? So
Ms.
we gonna-
Bird, I think that there's a myriad of different ways of looking at that statement. And I think that we have to be careful that we don't put ourselves under the assumption that that's putting us in a bad light, that's
And I
making us
understand,
heartless.
but I would like to see us have a A and a B plan. Well, Emma's house is falling down, what can we do? Let's find a place for her prior, before, vandalizing her out of that house, and she don't have a place to go. So we done made a bad situation worse.
Have we? Have we?
So where they gonna
No,
go?
what is someone living in a home that has no indoor plumbing, that is destroying other property values around it, and, whatever the reason, we don't know the facts, but I will say, being nose blind to the issue and not acknowledging it is not doing
Maybe I'm
anything.
not explaining, I'm not saying a house that's already torn down, I'm not talking like that.
I'm not either.
I'm talking about. a
We're just
house
talking about one that's in disarray,
Right.
one that, it may not be livable, but I don't think that's a decision at this level. I think that we have a building inspector, a building official, we have staff that needs to be paying attention to those things. And it should not be Commissioner Wills' job to point out those facilities that are in disrepair like that. And it sounds to me like what we're saying off of what we have right here on the unsafe buildings code is that we're waiting until it becomes an unsafe building and
Somebody turns it in.
and it becomes a reactionary process
I
instead
can't
of a
say for
proactive.
every house, but I do know staff is reaching out to get different organizations to come in and help those that might need that little extra help. So I do know that part, but I do understand what you said, and I agree with you. But I just like to, before I kick them out of my house, I like to have them a place to go,
Yes, ma'am.
so that's all I'm saying.
Yes,
On the other side of that, Ms. Bird, it's actually the situation I'm talking about is one the tenants have turned in because they can't get the landlord to fix it.
That's different.
That-
I'm not
that's what
talking
I'm
about
saying.
that, yeah, I'm talking
So-
about something totally
Right.
different.
Right.
And I can give an example, I could give two easy examples of one structure that sat on the corner of Hookers Point Road. Well, there's actually one that's there right now, but there was another one that sat on Hookers Point Road. It was the old buy, sell, used store, when you make that loop around the corner on the right, if you're heading back towards the Road and Bridge Department. And it was probably there 8 to 10 years. Hurricane Wilma ultimately was the nail in its coffin. And I don't know who ultimately made the complaint that brought it to the county's attention. But on more than one occasion, the county had to wear hard cost associated with people that went out there and essentially squatted and put their belongings out on the curb. And so the absentee owner would come up from Miami, take all that stuff out and just put it on the curb. And the county had hard costs associated with picking that stuff up. And we're never going to receive those dollars back. And then ultimately, we demoed that building. What I'm saying is that's an example of no one's in there. That building sat there for, let's go conservatively, 6 years. And and the county never tore it down, never did anything with it. Why does the county not have a policy that allows for a letter writing campaign that's real soft at first? And I saw that proposed in here a little bit. That then comes in with a little bit more teeth. And then instead of the county having a hard cost associated with going out and tearing down said building, there is a fine or a process that keeps running a tab up that we're keeping track of, that follows it to the letter of the law, and then the owner either comes in and deals with it, or then after said time, now we take that action to go ahead and tear it down, and we hope to recoup those costs while either the foreclosure process and actual ownership of the property, or the person coming in and fixing
And
those
I
leaks.
just think that we on a different level, so I agree with what you're saying. So I misunderstood, so, but I don't mean it that way, because I have people now that their land, they're renting, but the ceiling come down. They need to do what they need to do.
Okay, hold on. But that's a great point that you bring up, Ms. Bird, and you just said a key part of that phrase was they're renting.
They're renting.
And Commissioner Wills touched on that as well. That's not Commissioner Bird's job. That's not Commissioner Turner's job to jump in the middle of that. I don't know if it's the building official, I don't know if it's the planning director, I don't know if it's Jennifer's job to hop in her vehicle and go over there and fix that. I don't think it's any one of those people's jobs, but I know it's not yours from a policy standpoint. But so many times we're being forced into that conversation. I don't think that the landlord is ever having to deal with it, and that process becomes so, it happens so much that ultimately tenant leaves, the landlord has gotten his whatever or her, investment that they have returned, they just walk away.
So who
There's one at the very end of Art Lawrence, it's like that right now.
I mean, that's a good question. Whose responsibility is it? Because it happened, brought to our attention.
If there's nobody in the
Are they
building,
living in it?
well, they're living in it. So it's the landlord's responsibility.
And then whose process is it to squeeze said property owners
County,
to make that property come into compliance?
county.
Once again, code enforcement's stuck in the middle of all this. We had to figure out, and I can tell you, this is not a Henry County only issue.
Nope.
When we were studying this weekend in Gainesville, actually, there were quite a few counties represented, and one of the hottest topics was code enforcement. When they asked, what is your toughest conversation you're having? And they said code enforcement. And the majority of them, they've gone to using a special magistrate. There's different policies they can use there, obviously, and they're getting compliance. So that's something we probably need to look at. But there was probably 35 or 40 of us in the room, one of the hottest topics was code enforcement. So it's not just, it's going on everywhere, so it's not something we have to reinvent the wheel. We do need to investigate and find out. Some of these counties that have they've moved the dial forward, what have they done? How can we incorporate that into what our policy could be and get this moving forward?
Mr. Chair, not trying to move off of what you're saying, but going back up to the first aspect that was discussed on lot mowing and junk and debris.
Yes.
If you go back through our lien process or the report that was given to us, it's tens of thousands of dollars, we'll leave it at that. But once again, that's a hard cost that the county is wearing to go in and actually perform maintenance on that on that property. And we don't do that. We don't do that past 12 inches. We do it when it's chest high. And the chest high lots are what make the adjacent property owners angry. I think of the gentleman that lives off of Kanawha. He was so frustrated because that property that just got bought recently, every time we turn around, Mr. Peter, every time we turned around, it wasn't being dealt with. And I think we would mow it like once or twice a year. We would run up a tab, and then the absentee owner would never pay for it. Instead of having a process that allows for us, and I'm just asking, I don't know, I have a couple ideas, but why can we not have a more proactive process as well? You're at 12 inches, and we've implemented what y'all have put in there, where you're gonna talk to them, you're gonna be a little less aggressive out the gate. But now when it starts to get to 18 inches or 2 feet, and it's becoming a major eyesore to the adjacent neighbors, now the fines start to ensue. The county has the ability to do that, do we not? I don't know if we do in our current process.
It's a lien
And now, instead of us going out and having a hard cost associated with it, there's a tab that's being pushed against that property. And then 6 months from now, because that's probably more realistic of when we're reacting. Now, when we go out and mow it, there's those fines associated with it that hopefully we will ever see a recovery on, plus the cost of what we fixed. But we can show to the constituents around there, we're taking active steps to try to correct this, instead of just 2 letters that have no teeth in them.
Now, once again, that was kind of the point when I was, I believe Charlotte County was one of them, Joe, and I can't remember his last name, you probably know him. I was discussing this, and he said that was one of the hottest topics, and mowing, actually a lot of their vacant lots was part of the issue. So we really need to, reach out to these other counties and say, hey, what have you done, and what seems to work, and try to get it, on board as well.
because it's all liens on mowing, correct?
Right, it becomes a lien for our expense incurred.
You only get it when they sell the lot.
No, sir, but Commissioner Harris, I wanna point out, what you just said was, and what Mark just confirmed was, we get that lien when the expense is incurred. So that means staff,
When they sell the land.
no, sir, that means when staff and or said contractor goes through the physical act of performing work on that property,
Yeah, we pay them.
we pay them. So now the county's out, in many ways, the county's out twice, because we're hoping to recoup it. We're hiring someone to go out there and perform that work. And there's a question mark of whether we're ever gonna get paid or not. And I just think that we should tweak our process a little bit to say, and leave it at 60 days, or leave it at however long the time frame is, but start the tab running right now to try to get people to come into compliance. And the thing that I would use, the example that I would use is, y'all referenced, county opened 968 cases and closed 936 cases, and or 861 cases were resolved in just communicating and having a letter writing campaign. So the staff is telling us people are trying to come into compliance. Okay, so instead of going through the physical act of running up a tab and having a hard cost that the county is going to have a tough time and only a 5-year window to actually receive that cost back, I think we need to tweak our process so that we can look at how that change can result.
You talking about on mowing or other stuff?
Well, it looks like, once again, lot mowing and junk debris, that seems to be a huge percentage of our issues. If you go back through the other reports that were prepared, I can't remember how large that percentage is, but it's pretty substantial. And I think that we ought to focus on slaying probably the highest percentage animal, which is mowing out the gate, and then see from a pilot program with changing up of language of how well that performs differently than what we've done forever. I get worried that the 968 cases and 936 cases closed in the fiscal year is staff's way of saying, we're opening up a lot of cases, we're closing a lot of cases, and we're bringing people into compliance. And in doing that, I just used the 1 or 10 examples that we all see that are the big blights that I think bleed over.
Say, Mark, okay, you can't lane jump, so what are we gonna do?
Well, okay, so you lien for your work, for the benefit you provided to the property by cleaning it up, so that's what the
I'm
lien is.
talking about if they're living there, and it's junk, they won't clean it up, they've been to the judge, they've been through all, and it's still the same after 3 years.
Okay, but you said they've been to the judge. That, for the first process, the lot mowing and junk and debris are under the code
I'm
process.
not talking about rotten or junk.
Okay, well, junk can also be, it's in the same category. A junk on an unoccupied structure,
No, this is occupied.
okay, so occupied, so that goes, the third process, which I didn't talk about yet, but it's in the memo, that's the court process, where we issue a notice of violation, and then a citation, and it goes in front of the judge. We do not do the work ourselves. It's in front of the judge, and he orders the work to be done, and also the payment of fines. So that's for those cases. So there's fines and orders for corrective action by the judge to the landowner, and we don't do the work, and therefore there's no lien.
Okay, what do they do when they don't still don't go in compliance? They goes to the judge, they're fine, and it still looks the same way after 3 years.
I don't know, the code enforcement will have to tell me what happens.
Well, I don't think, nobody knows.
And you would, I think what you're driving at too, Commissioner Harris, is that you could give us, if you wanted to, if you were so inclined, you could give us specific examples of,
I could give you
That has occurred.
addresses,
yeah.
and code is stood on their head. They begged them, they did everything they could do. The judge begged them, and gave them everything they did. And what you ride by, they add more stuff to it,
Yeah,
more junk.
or orders.
Yeah. And, I mean, we've gotta do something, and, I think the judge is the only that can do anything. We'll know when we get our new judge.
And that's exactly, Commissioner Harris is referring to a property that, we've taken before, 2-3 different judges now. And they get first the time to comply, then they get the higher fine, the 150 the first time, third time was 300, but she still hasn't complied. So that's what he's asking, and we're at the same point. Where do we go from there? We just keep taking it to a judge until we get a daily fine or a court order for some kind of corrective action, because I'm not sure that a judge is actually going to court order us to go onto someone's occupied property and remove things. So it might just be a daily fine that continues to accrue until the property comes into compliance. So it's like that's the issue that he's referring to, and yeah.
They're actually paying the fines?
No, they're not.
Again,
They're-
that goes right back to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
They don't do that. And when they talked to them, next week they had more stuff. The judge fined them, gave them 30 days, they added more stuff. And so it's like talking to a wall. It just-
Those are some bad players that are just,
And so,
I don't know that
And so, let's just say for discussion's sake, we had 6 of those, or 10 of those throughout the county.
I hope not.
What I'm saying is, I think that we need to look at, first off, you asked about the lien process. I'm not asking about the lien process. I'm asking about the fine. What do we have to do to change our language to be able, for our code enforcement staff, and or what's the mechanism for being able to find someone in a proactive manner because their home, that property is going into disarray? How do we arrive at that
That's-
mark?
I think it's left up to the judge.
Yeah, if you're talking about a home, so you're talking about an occupied property, right, as opposed to a non-occupied.
Let's use both scenarios. Start with occupied first.
Okay, so the occupied properties, we do not take through the lot mowing junk process. It goes to court. It goes through notice violation, citation, court,
Okay,
right
let's
at
start.
the start.
Why do we arbitrarily assume that we don't do that with occupied? What is the ruling that stops us from doing that?
It's, the concept is that, you're going on to somebody's property. If we do the lot mowing where we like send a letter and it's no response, and then we hire a contractor and he's out there mowing, for us, or dragging junk away for us, the concept is it's very, intrusive, to people, you might say, that we're.
It's ridiculously intrusive.
To-
But you
I'm
know how
talking-
intrusive it is for that neighbor
Yeah, they look at it every day.
every day.
I think you could provide in your code that you are allowed to do the mowing on the occupied properties, but you're not allowed to hop fences and break gates, so it
Okay,
has
so
to be
we
open.
can have a policy change to say we're gonna deal with occupied and unoccupied.
Right, but just be aware of it's complicated when you do that. They're out there, they got their kids, running around, they got a dog chained up, they got, there's things that are out there that make it messy to even try to mow and clean up, and
like a shotgun.
I think we're gonna have some.
so staff level,
So goes back though, Commissioner Wills, goes back to the point of saying, what I get back to, I don't wanna have a hard cost. I don't want to have to send said contractor or said staff person out there to deal with that. I wanna have a letter writing campaign that says, listen, said owner that is a bad actor, you know, you're running up this tab. So with that premise in mind, what do we have to change, or is there the ability for us to change from a policy standpoint to be able to start the county issuing a fine? Because the city of Clueston issues a fine. The city of Clueston, if you're not in compliance, and I'm not using them as an example of a beacon of good hope, I'm not being critical of them either, I'm just saying, I don't wanna do what they do because it has no problems. It does have problems. I can give you one side of town that every time I go and eat at sunrise, it gives me an ulcer that bleeds. But I'll get off of that soapbox. They do issue a cost associated with a violator. Can the county do that? And not have a hard cost?
Okay, so you're saying the cost is not because we've incurred a hard cost,
Yes,
it's a
sir.
fine?
Yes, sir.
It's a fine, and we can only do a fine through court or special magistrate or code enforcement court. We can't just issue fines.
Yes, sir, that's
on our
what I'm
own.
saying. My question is, can we change the policy that we have today? I'm not saying change it tonight. I'm saying, can we start down the discussion path of having a policy change that allows for us to be what I would call proactive, or not having to go before a judge and not having to get a court order, which clearly takes a tremendous amount of time and energy and ties up the county court system. And the county staff can say, you know what, we have this one lot on the corner of Oak and Flaghole, or Pine and Flaghole, that they're not gonna do what they need to do. Here's your certified mail, here's your certified mail, here's your certified mail, because we've gone through the process 60, 90, 120 days of trying to legally get them to respond and telling them, get ready, a fine's coming, and then we start that process.
But the problem is, some of them get fined every month. They don't care, they're not gonna pay the fine, they're not gonna clean up, they're not gonna do nothing.
Commissioner Harris, that sounds dangerously close to, we just need to throw our hands up and not do anything.
No.
And I don't think you mean that.
No, I
And
wanna,
so-
yeah, but I'm trying to find out what to do.
Okay, so what,
We-
so with the premise that I've proposed, what can we do, Mark?
Would that be a change from going to court to instead implement the special magistrate or code enforcement board
The
process?
only way you could get them to do it is put them in jail, no other way, until you lock them up.
Well, the special magistrate, what several of the other counties said they had to go to get teeth to the code enforcement.
That might work.
That's what they, every one of them taught, that's exactly what they said.
That
We
might-
had to go to a special magistrate in order to put teeth to our code enforcement.
Does the special magistrate come and sit right there at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and do it? And so Mark, with stopping that conversation right now, unless y'all wanna continue to have it, I don't think that you've proposed that in this staff report, correct?
I didn't recommend that you change that, I let you know that that's an option.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
And don't the people have to show up?
Furthermore, who has to pay for the special magistrate?
The county.
So then there's another hard cost that we have to bear.
There is, and Mark, with that, is there a way to recoup costs associated with the special magistrate's process? Or is that just hard cost, you're gonna do it, and it is what it is?
And that, if you're gonna do it, make it a fine, and if you don't, you're gonna come here, and then that's gonna cost you as well.
And does the county will have to have legal representation to represent itself
Right.
at that special magistrate process?
Right, and I or code enforcement staff by themselves without me can do that. I mean, I'll come when I need to, or they can come and handle it. They go to county court by themselves now.
Yes, sir.
And so, that can happen with or without me, but it's not an additional expense, because I could do it to the extent it's necessary. But, so the special magistrate is the hard cost.
Let's say we went to Madison Avenue, where the baddest attorneys on the planet live up in New York City, and we brought that guy in that cost $750 an hour. Are we allowed to put his cost
Yeah.
associated against that process?
I'm trying to find the statute on,
I don't wanna hire a Madison Avenue attorney.
Don't use that one that, we used up here earlier, $4,500, right?
We're gonna get someone from FEMA. Well, listen, so I think, just off the little bit of chatter that we've had here tonight, I don't wanna cut the conversation short. And if y'all wanna continue to have it, I'm all about it. The only thing, Mark, that I really disliked in the proposal that was given was the paragraph, the second paragraph, the paragraph at the bottom of page 3, of, wanting to go and add, for the uniform method of collection and add that, to the tax bill as a special assessment. It just, going to use one of your own statements, Mark, of, you know, these people are not paying now, why are they gonna engage it then? I would like to try something different unless y'all think that that's a great idea, and then you're gonna have to convince me why we wanna implement
So when
that.
they pay their taxes, they have to pay it, correct?
Of which many of these properties are not paying their taxes, but I can't speak specifically to that, because I don't know what the actual volume is, but I think there's a tremendous amount of tax deeds that are available.
Because when the garbage bill's on there, they're paying that sometime. But when they don't, then it's all lien stuff.
And it's just, to me, it's just another option of us pushing the bill. You know, I don't wanna say kick the can down the road, but it's just something that we always say, but we're just deferring and not gonna make it front and center that we look at. And, so I say, I would like to make a proposal, and I'm not putting this in the form of a motion. I would like to make a proposal that we're only gonna have one meeting in November, one meeting in December, is that right? I would like to ask Mark and staff to give us, to continue this conversation for a little while, unless y'all wanna continue to talk for a while. I'm all about talking as long as you want to. But also the little bit of conversation that we've had thus far, asking Mark to bring us back some solid proposals with what he's heard here a little bit tonight and any other clear direction that you need. And then, let's revisit it in that December meeting. After we reorganize, let's make it front and center. And contemplate if we can, by the end of the first quarter of 2019, implementing and, rolling out a new method of how we deal with, code enforcement in the county, where we're, you could say a little bit more aggressive. I would lean more towards saying it's, a little bit more, efficient on our side, and potentially putting more teeth into the bad actors that are not doing anything for years now.
And find out about the junk. What are we gonna do? Can we lock them up?
Well, the answer, I can tell you the answer is no to that. I mean,
We'll
there's-
find out what we can do. We can't just do nothing.
you can't, I can tell you, for the very severe cases, there's always the option of filing a lawsuit, for creation of a public nuisance, and, the lawsuit where we sue them, it's us against them, it's in court, and we're seeking for an order for corrective action.
You can handle that?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. And the only thing about that's, you need to be aware of, that, when it requires cost, when it requires an expense to come into compliance, that the next step, if they don't do it, would be to file a motion for contempt. Well, let me back up. So we get an order that says, we're right, they've got a situation that's not in compliance with the code, they have to remove this junk, judge enters an order, you're hereby ordered to remove the junk, Mr. Landowner. And then he fails to do that within the time stated. Then we can file a motion for contempt of court, that he's violating an order of the court. But in order to be found in contempt, there has to be a finding that the person has the financial ability to pay, because people cannot be found in contempt if they're paupers, if they're destitute. And so that's a process, and most of these people,
They're gonna fall into that.
they're gonna be in that side of things. So you're not gonna be able to, you can't make people spend money they don't have. And so.
And Mark,
We're not asking them to spend any money, just clean it up, put it by the road,
Well-
we'll pick it up.
Well,
It don't cost much.
that might, but that's where Margaret's idea about the community involvement may be part of the
But you don't-
solution.
Yeah, but if you went and cleaned that lady's yard up, the community, which they would, the very next week, it'd start looking the same way.
okay, but now we're starting to get into,
Something else.
yeah, I mean, we're starting to get into, in my opinion, of, there's just some cases that we're never gonna be able to deal with, and I know you well enough to know, Commissioner Harris, you ain't gonna put the cuffs on nobody and or want anybody to put the cuffs on somebody for being dirty in their yard, no matter how bad it
We're
is.
thinking about it.
Okay. Alright, tough guy. But, I think that, and I can't speak specifically for all of y'all. I know for me, there are some blighted areas that really create, a situation situation of my blood pressure rising, and I hate looking at them. And I think y'all have some as well. And some of them are going on generational time frame that they've been like that. And I think that we need to try to, you know, when we did the 5 times 5, 25 places that we looked at, and I think 16 of 25 were brought into compliance just off of us looking at them. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen every time, but I go back to, I think that we've had a fair amount of conversation about potentially changing the method of how we go about it, getting more educated about the special magistrate process. Mark, I don't know if that envelops us into going into chapter 162, part 1 and 2, but all of that is really neither here nor there. I think everybody's acknowledging that we need to change something, you know, and we're all getting educated to this process. And so, you know, I think there's some good figures. You know, you talk about in 0506 they opened 1,546 cases and 1,569 were brought into compliance. You can get the same stat for 1718, 968, and 936. I hate those figures because what those say to me is we're getting it done, we're knocking it in the head. You know, we're making our constituency base come into compliance. And I don't know if it's I don't know what that report says other than how I see it is relax, everything's fine. And I still go back to we have just those 1, 2, or 12 places that are it's bleeding out, it's infiltrating into everybody's DNA. So that's it.
We did have home 78, 2 mobile homes. This is where you ride, you turn left and go to the river home. And it took probably 3 or 4 years or something, begging, pleading, letters. And I went by a week ago and they're gone. We finally torn down and gone.
Who tore them down?
The homeowner, the people at home.
Yep.
Yeah. But it took 2 to 3 years to get them rid of it.
And you know, when you look at when you start going back statutorily now, we have a 5-year window of opportunity to deal with these issues, and then tabs are kind of going away. I think that we need to tweak it a little bit. So, but we need to tweak it a lot. Actually, we need to tweak it a lot.
Is the special magistrate, it sounds like that's the one that you're most interested in exploring further?
You see that extends the time frame as well.
Right, it does, but it sounds like that's,
Well, we
Well, it's
can look at
working,
it.
it's working in other counties.
And
Like I
Mark,
said, this is a hot topic across the entire state, it's not just here.
Mr. Chair, I think we would have a hard time, Mark, setting up that code enforcement board or something. We'd have a hard time finding people to have a quorum and do that, wouldn't we?
yeah, I think we're lucky.
Yeah.
And they,
Yeah.
you know,
They don't want to do that. Does anybody know what they're charged?
with the special magistrate? Well, I think you put out like an RFP for attorneys either in, we have a small community, but there may be some here who may apply, or we may get an attorney from Fort Myers, and you know, maybe make them, you know, include the hourly rate in their proposal, and then you could decide, you know.
Right. This is something that we actually presented to the board maybe a couple of years ago, the discussion about a magistrate. And what I learned, now this isn't, you know, probably the only option, what I learned was that, you know, the magistrate is gonna charge you an hourly rate. We talked about sharing the magistrate that is used by Clewiston and being able to make some economies of scale there. But it's, again, it is something that we looked into and we presented the idea, but the fact that it does cost us money turn y'all off, and I understand that. But I think that we can find an option that would not be as costly as you might think, is what I'm getting at.
You're referring to a magistrate or or something
magistrate.
besides a magistrate?
No, magistrate, I would not recommend the board. That would
Okay.
take more time and effort on staff and,
Okay, so you're confident that we can find a magistrate that we could afford, and
absolutely.
I would love
Yeah.
to see the figures on it before we delve into it, I'm sure
Sure,
we will.
sure, we can get some of that information and have it as part of our next
And
report.
that's as needed, and then if they don't work,
Right.
then if they don't
Exactly,
work.
that's
they'll
how they
call it
operate
back.
anyway. So it's, you know, and they come in and they take care of X number of cases in, you know, one swoop and,
It works.
you know, and it can work, better in most cases. I'm not gonna say, I don't know enough to say that it's silver bullet, but anyway.
But you can try. If it don't work, just come back.
Right, and just so you know, we've also been, doing some investigation with other counties on how they're doing their code enforcement. I appreciate, you know, you talking, Commissioner Wills, the meeting that you were in, and I'd really like to hear more, from you, so if you could stop by and we could talk a little bit more. But, I just recently spoke with somebody, in Marion County, one of my counterparts, the folks that, were, you know, hit hard by Michael, and they were calling around to find out what we did, after Irma that would help them with their recovery. And there was a couple of things I could share with them that we did do in conjunction with FEMA. I'll give you an example, because you're probably gonna, you know, just something we did was we approved that folks that had damage, had a FEMA, approved by FEMA for rehabilitation of their home, that they could park an RV on their property that FEMA would provide. FEMA and the Corps would be coordinating this. Our regulations don't allow it, but we wrote, you know, basically a letter saying that we agree it's okay, but we need to monitor this, and there's some requirements that go with it. So, anyway, there's a couple things that I was able to share with her, and she was really pleased with that. At the same time, I started talking about some of the things that our challenges are, and we talked about unsafe structures. And she told me that they have a very aggressive unsafe structure program that has been very successful. And as soon as she gets her computer back, she's gonna send me all the information she can. And it's just one of those things, I'm excited about that, and getting that information and getting more. We have, since I've been here, I know that we have looked at other communities on how they do code enforcement. I think that, apparently, well, at this point, I don't think we reached out far enough. We didn't throw the net far enough. And I'll be honest with you, I think I'm excited about, getting more creative, and that you all are willing to get more creative with how we do these things. Cause it's just as frustrating for staff as it is for all of you, so.
Thank you.
So December board meeting, we'll have a report back to you, is that
That's
the
fine.
intention?
So we need to, what kind of action do you take on that, Mark, any, or?
I don't think there's any motion needed, I think we got a direction.
What's the date of the November meeting?
November.
13.
Yeah, it's November 13th.
13th, and then December the 7th.
I think it's the 11th.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on that point, I'm glad you mentioned that. The calendar, you know, at the end of last year, you approved the calendar for this year. And I think by mistake, that calendar, you know, both of the November and December meetings are the quote-unquote first meeting. They're the second Tuesday in both cases, and it's
You
the
wanna
fourth
bump
Tuesday.
one back?
Well, keep the dates the same, but you normally make your December meeting a LaBelle meeting. And I think, I'm 99% certain that calendar said closed in for the
Oh,
December
no,
meeting.
you know what it is? You know what it is? Daryl has told Mark to say this, because last year we had to go to LaBelle both times.
Yeah.
You did good, Matt.
But that's past board practice, is to do November closed in LaBelle.
November will be
Let me ask y'all this, today we're sitting on the 23rd. That's actually pretty good, isn't it, y'all, the 13th and the 11th kind of works, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Well, what
that's,
was the question?
I was just wondering, do we want to move it up to the 6th? Or did we want to move it back to the 27th? And, you know, have a less gap or a bigger gap or anything like that, but it looks like it's about right.
yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, they're not changing it. I think she's already advertised some things
Okay.
for November 13th.
So we'll go the 13th, flip a coin, you want to go Clewiston or LaBelle?
I think she's advertised the 13th for closed in
Clewiston, the 11th is in LaBelle.
December 11th.
Thank you, Ms. Young.
Everybody got that?
And we includes on both times.
No,
Yeah. That's what I heard.
you know who you sound like.
Okay. Got it, Mr. Lau?
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone in the public who'd like to address the board at this time? Come up to the dais.
First one, Mitch's meeting up in, was it Gainesville, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds very interesting. It'd be, if some counties around are interested in getting tough, I wonder what they're considering doing. It might be somehow to turn that house that's a nuisance into an unlivable property. You might withdraw services, perhaps. Maybe somebody's thought of doing that. Withhold water, withhold fire protection, withhold, and make, I don't know if you'd want to do it, but make it clear from the very beginning when they move in that electricity will be cut off.
You're an island on your own.
Well, once again,
If it's legal, I don't.
yeah, it's all, it's a statewide issue, and they have addressed that through Charlotte County and several other counties, and that's what we're gonna do, is look and see how they've done that, and that will help us.
How about turning all the hookers pointed to a deed restricted community?
Yeah, baby.
Some counties didn't even have code enforcement.
And some didn't, so,
Some didn't even
and
have.
some didn't even have it, so it's,
Big
like I said,
tech,
it's a statewide issue. Anyone else in the public? None? Anything else from the board side? Mr. Swindle?
Um, You know, we started this conversation of code enforcement, I believe, 5 years ago, when I was first on the board, and I'd like, you know, it seems like we all have passionate things, and I apologize about getting on the soapbox about FEMA tonight, but I'm getting very aggravated with that whole issue, and then I was told last week at the meeting that was held at the EOC that they said it could be upwards of 10 years before we see any type of return, and that's just, it blows my mind. It's just unfathomable, you know, and so I think that we need to, along with code enforcement, we may have to readdress that as well, and how we deal, or if we want to deal with FEMA as we move forward, but, you know, I know that's a lot of discussion. And we all, I believe in our respective districts, we all suffer from code enforcement issues, no matter where you live or what part of the county you're in. None of us are immune to it, and but I will say that Commissioner Turner has definitely taken the charge, and at the onset of this, I wasn't sure why, but you know, as time is going on, I absolutely see why he's pushed it and how it affects the community in multiple ways, from property values to educational attainment in the schools, and I believe he's 100% right. So I think this is great discussion, and I appreciate Commissioner Turner continually pushing it, and I look forward to more discussion on how we can do a better job and be more aggressive as a county and as a board, and give our staff the ability to be more productive in the current boots that they wear every day. Secondly, you know, we've all, Charles was hired on just a few months before I came on board in the county, and so I've kind of been here the length of time he has. Very appreciative of Charles, and unbelievable grateful for the direction he's taken the county, but I'm also of the leadership opinion that Ms. Davis now obviously has the ability and the leadership and the strength and the skills, and I look forward to extending the grace to her to make sure that she has the latitude and freedom to make this county ran by, you know, Jennifer Davis, County Administrator. And so I look forward to it. I look forward to the proactive changes. I look forward to the things that she's going to do for the county to make us better, more efficient, more streamlined, and even better than we are today. So I look forward to working with Jennifer. So good luck, and don't hesitate to lean on the five of us as you need be as well. So okay, that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Barrett?
Well, along with the code enforcement, you know, we understand that they have went to a limit to where they could go, so, and along with, Commissioner Turner, he has some valid points for what we need to do, because they have gotten to the place that they can't go any further. They have done a great job, and we appreciate it, but I think it's time that we make their job just a little bit easier. And also to Jennifer, looking forward to working with you. You have been so great with me since I got on. This is my second year, and you've been nothing but awesome, so I'm looking for great things from you. Good luck.
We just want Code to know that the board backs them, they're gonna be with them and do everything we can to straighten this out. And we're in the new, as Roe called it, we're in the Jennifer Davis administration. famous words. Thank you very much.
Mr. Turner?
We have a group of us, Mayor Gardner, myself, I remember Steve Nisbet was at one of our first meetings. School board member Stephanie Houston. When you start naming people, you leave people out, so it's horrible. Tuesday trip. We started meeting 10 years ago to discuss education and the correlation between education and economic development. Y'all heard this elevator speech before. Jerry and Richard Yorshek, right after I got elected, you guys invited me to the Early Learning Coalition of Southwest Florida. Remember those meetings in Florinellas? Great breakfasts. And Mr. Wayne Wilkins and Julie Wilkins and just a herd of other people, Sonny Jean Hughes. We would have the Captain Hendry dinner at the Captain Hendry house. And we got to go through the highs of the economy with Bonita Bay paying $5,000 for a pie to we were having to give tickets away to get a decent showing. I'm happy to tell y'all that dinner is still alive and kicking. Thanks to people like yourselves helping us to establish that footprint, that solid foundation. We're going to have a great time on Saturday night at Dunwoody Lodge over in Clewiston. And we will be bringing that back to the Captain Henry House after we get some repairs done. But we're sold out. We have 150 spots and we have 150 tickets sold. We're anticipating we're probably going to hit the $30,000 mark that night. That goes towards our Education Improvement Task Force's coffers. Commissioner Swindle, you better give us a report on, was it 10,000 that we did? Yes. On what our $10,000 did for you last year. Be prepared to speak. Because I know there was a handful of people that got to go to the adult school because of that. And we were excited about that. Our focus is a laser focus as we tie the correlation of economic and education together. Our laser focus, and you're going to say, I need to hear a little bit more, is voluntary pre-kindergarten, the 4-year-old students in our county, and getting a higher percentage of them to the VPK class, and the VPK performers to do better. And then as that compounds into kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth, and as we get better with what we can focus on, we're going to open up our mission a little bit more. But we pull our reins back, and that's our focus. I'm happy to be a part of that group. We've made some great strides. I know Charles was active in that. I know Jennifer's asked me a ton of questions about it. Emily Hunter's very engaged. And I will tell you all that the county, being one of the largest employers in our area, can be a huge mover in that conversation. We can really help to drive some of these discussions, and we should. And y'all know my passion for code enforcement. Y'all know my passion for this position. I am excited about the Jennifer Davis era beginning as well. I think that this board sending a very loud voice of support and putting that out there and saying, let's get it done and let's make sure that the transition is quick and smooth. I think that speaks volumes to where we're at as a county. It's just you and Mark that work for us, right? That's it. Shane technically doesn't work for us either.
Right.
Yeah. You know, and it's so funny when people call you up, rip your butt because, right? People are mad at you, Commissioner Harris, because you need to clean out that ditch in Fort Deneau or whatever it may be, and that's not our gig. You know what I mean? We can help. We can help move that conversation along, but really that's the people that we employ, and then we try to be mindful of from a fiscal standpoint of what we're dealing with up here. But I enjoy working with y'all. I'm looking forward to my event on Saturday. I attended the Rage Education Glades County Foundation dinner on Saturday. It was awesome. I had friends at the Peace, Love, and Pause. It's amazing to see what our community does time and time again, along with the cattlemen having just a packed house as well. You know, it's amazing how we get behind things. So let's move the conversations forward, and just want to really tell you two thank you for going to those classes and getting educated and meeting your colleagues throughout the state. I think that's extremely instrumental to our ability to be able to do this job. And it's not the value that you get sitting in that class and listening to those lectures as much as the value you get to listen to other knuckleheads like us throughout the state and the problems and the pros and the cons that we're dealing with. And I know you've done it already. I know you've done it already.
closing on my part, same thing, really excited about where the county's going. Been worked for the county for 28 years now, 30, if you add these last 2 years in there. It's exciting to see where it's come from to where it's going. Staff's doing an amazing job. We have, you know, you're not gonna make everybody happy, just part of it. We have people that get upset, but the fact is we've been getting a lot more compliments than we have complaints. And that speaks volumes to staff. I'm anxious to see where we're gonna be, you know, getting the buildings looked at. As we talked about, getting some of them hardened, you know, for our EMS stations and several other situations to where we don't have to move staff so much in the storm season. So we've got some exciting things coming up, and I know it's a little tough when you start trying to swallow the pill of what looks like a loan, but these are things we've been needing to do for a long time, and like you said, you know, with the constraints in the past, we couldn't do those things. And it's not just about the buildings, it's about the employees, it's about staff, what they work in every day, the conditions they work in. So in order to move the county forward, you gotta start somewhere, and I believe we're starting at a good place tonight. You know, the cemeteries, the different things we have, those are gonna be conversations that do need to be had. With the growth of the county also brings in other constraints as well, so. Ms. Davis, congratulations. I'm looking forward to working with you. Been working with you for a long time. And it's always been a pleasure and very educational. The classes, like you said, Commissioner Turner, they were amazing. It's not so much, like you said, you do gain knowledge out of the class itself, but what you get from gleaning from other commissioners that you can actually sit and have conversations with that we can't have.
Yep.
We can sit there and discuss things that they're dealing with or the things they've dealt with that we can't sit amongst the five of us and talk about. So it's a statewide thing, it's not just a Henry County thing, so I believe it's gonna be a good thing moving forward. Anyone have anything else?
Commissioner Wills, does it ever blow y'all's mind when you listen to a commissioner from Miami-Dade or Palm Beach or Duval and the issue that they're dealing with, and you're just like, you spent how much on what? You know, and you're just like, I can't even fathom those dollars, you know?
The one gentleman from Palm Beach County said, yeah, we got 14 million sitting over here, we're just gonna hold it there for a while. I'm thinking, well, just send it on over our way.
I'm telling you.
We can do a lot with 14 million, bud.
I think there's 37 counties throughout the state that if you add their entire millage together and what it brings in on the revenues perspective, it equals it equals 1/10 of 1 mil for Miami-Dade.
It's mind blowing. When you start hearing the numbers they throw around, it makes you think, wow.
We're in that 37, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.